A very good morning, dear students. Today we are going to continue with chapter 14, Measurement and Effects of Heat. In the last class, we learnt about heat, we learnt about temperature, we learnt about the difference between the two, and we saw that thermometer was used to measure the temperature of a substance. So today we will learn about calorimeter, which is used to measure the heat content of the object. So, calorimeter has inner vessel that's made up of copper, outer vessel. It has heat resistant ring and also heat resistant lid respectively. Now why do we have the heat resistant ring and the lid? It is basically to make sure that the heat that is there inside does not move into the surrounding or does not get exchanged with the surrounding, so that the calculation of the heat remains exact. So, in such a condition, when the heat is not able to move out or it's not getting exchanged with the surrounding, we say that it is thermally isolated. Okay, so whatever is the inner heat will remain as it is. Other than this, we have the thermometer, which helps in measuring the temperature, and we have a stirrer for stirring the liquid in the calorimeter. Okay, now suppose that there is a hot object. I've put the hot object into the calorimeter. Now, what is going to happen? The hot object is going to, the heat that the hot object has, it's going to get moved into the water, or the water is going to take up the heat from the object. The heat that is given by the object or lost by the object is going to be equal to the heat that is absorbed by the water and the calorimeter. So, by measuring the temperature of the water with the help of the thermometer and also by measuring the temperature of the calorimeter, we will understand how much of heat has been given out by the object. So, the heat that is lost by the object is equal to the heat that is absorbed by the water and the calorimeter. Similarly, if I put a cold object into the calorimeter, what is a cold object going to do? It is going to take heat. It will take heat from the water and the calorimeter. So, how much ever heat is lost by the water or is lost by the calorimeter is nothing but the heat that is absorbed by the cold object. Always remember, whether you put a hot object or whether you put a cold object in the calorimeter, there is going to be a heat exchange between the object, the water, and the calorimeter, and all three, that is, object, water, and calorimeter, will reach the same temperature. Okay, all three will reach the same temperature after there is a heat exchange. Now, coming to the most important part of the chapter, that is specific heat. To understand specific heat, we will look at this picture. Now, here I have taken an iron ball, a copper ball, a lead ball, which is of the same mass. I've put it in a vessel and I've heated all of them for the same time. After I heat them for the same time, I put them on a layer of wax. Now, even though I've heated it for the same time, even though they were of the same mass, you will see that iron melts the wax more as compared to copper and as compared to lead. Why is this? This is mainly because of specific heat. Specific heat means the amount of heat that is needed to increase the temperature. Even though heat given to all the three was the same, the temperature of iron increased more rapidly as compared to copper and lead, and that is because of specific heat. So, different substances have different specific heat. Okay, now how much of heat I am giving to a particular substance, it depends upon mass of the substance, it depends upon specific heat of the substance, and it also depends upon how much of increase is happening in the temperature, or how much of difference is there between the initial and the final temperature. So suppose that I have an object. I want to increase the temperature of the object. So I'm going to, obviously what I will do is I will heat the object. So let's say that the heat that you're giving to the object is Q. So Q is the heat. Now how much I'm going to give so that the temperature increases? It will depend upon M, that is mass of that object, specific heat of the object, and it also depends upon what is the initial temperature. Initial temperature means the temperature at which the object is currently. Okay, that's why it's written as Ti, that is initial temperature. And till where should I heat it, or what is the expected temperature rise, or what is the final temperature? So it's written as Tf. Okay, TITF, that is initial temperature to final temperature, can also be given as delta T. Now that triangle is nothing but delta. Okay, so the heat that an object should be given depends upon mass, that is M, specific heat, that is Q, and the temperature difference, that is Tf, final temperature and the initial temperature difference, that can also be given as delta T. So we write this as Q is equal to M into C into Tf minus Ti, that is Q depends upon, heat depends upon mass, specific heat and temperature difference. Okay, now whatever we have learned, that we are going to relate it to an actual situation. Suppose that I have an object. Now I want to find out, it's already heated, so I want to find out the heat content of it. So I'm going to write this as QO is equal to MO into CO into TO minus TF. Now here same equation we have written, the only thing we have added is we have added QO, where O stands for that of the object. So heat of the object is nothing but it depends upon mass of the object, specific heat of the object and the temperature change. Now when I told you that the object is hot, that means already the temperature is high. What is the object going to do? It's going to give away its heat. So the initial temperature of the object is high and the final temperature is low. That is why we have written TO minus TF, that is the temperature of the object minus the final temperature. That means it's going to lose its temperature by giving it to water and the calorimeter. Okay, this can also be written as QO is equal to MO into CO into delta TO. This we will consider as equation 1. Now we are going to look at water. I told you that water and calorimeter also is going to take the heat. So let's see how much of heat is related to that of water. So this we can write as, again the same thing, only difference you are doing is here you, instead of writing O, we are writing W, that is for water. So QW is equal to MW into CW into TF minus TI. Now here if you see, TF has come first. Why? Because the initial temperature of water is less. It's going to take the heat from the object and it's going to increase in its temperature. So the final temperature is more. That is why TF, that is the final temperature minus initial temperature we have taken. Okay, so heat of water depends upon mass of water, specific heat of water and the temperature change, that is final minus initial. So QW is equal to MW, CW and delta TW. This is going to be equation 2. And now we will look at the calorimeter, heat of the calorimeter. Simple this is. Here instead of writing W, we have written C. So it's going to be QC is equal to MC into CC into TF minus TI. Here also we have final temperature minus initial temperature, because initially the temperature is low. It's taking it from the object and it's going to increase. So the final temperature is going to be more. That is why TF minus TI. So we are going to write this as the heat of calorimeter depends upon mass of calorimeter, specific heat of calorimeter, and the difference. So QC is equal to MC into CC into delta TC. This is the third equation. Three equations we have written, one for the object, second for the water, and third for the calorimeter. We'll put all three together. So here we've taken first equation, second equation, and the third equation. Now when we were learning about calorimeter, I told you that how much ever is the heat of the object, heat that is lost by the object, is going to depend upon the heat that is taken up by the water and the heat of the calorimeter. That is why I have written it as QO, heat of the object, is equal to QW plus QC, that is heat of the water and heat of the calorimeter. Okay, now we have already got an idea of what is QO, what is QW, what is QC. The only thing we have to do is we have to substitute in these. What is QO? QO is MO into CO into delta TO. Write it. QO is on the left hand side, so this also will be written on the left hand side. Is equal to, what is QW? QW is MW into CW into delta TW, that we will write. And what is QC? MC into CC into delta TC, and that we are going to write here. Okay, so this is an equation which tells us that how much ever object has lost, that much only water has taken and calorimeter has taken. I hope this is clear. Now coming to thermal expansion of solids. We know that whenever heat is given to any substance, the temperature increases and it expands. And that expansion will depend upon the increase in the temperature. Whether it is a solid, whether it's a liquid, or whether it's a gas, all expand on receiving heat. However, there are types in it. First is linear expansion, where it expands horizontally. Second is volumetric expansion, where it expands in all possible directions. And we have areal expansion, where the area expands. Now solids show you all three. Solids can show you linear expansion, volumetric expansion, areal expansion. If I am taking a rod, it will show me linear expansion. If I am taking a three-dimensional piece of a solid, it will show me volumetric expansion. And if I am taking a sheet of a solid material, it will show me areal expansion. However, when you're talking about liquids and gases, liquids show volumetric expansion. Gases can be told to show volumetric expansion, but more than that, the pressure increases. Okay, so we are going to look at the derivations of each one of them. Let's start with linear expansion. Linear expansion depends upon the type of material, the length of the object, and the temperature change. When I say linear expansion is nothing but the increase in the length of a particular solid because of the increase in the temperature. Suppose that I have a rod which has the length L1. I am heating the rod. Because of the heat, there's going to be a temperature change, and you will see that the length has increased and the final length has changed to L2. So nothing I've done, I've just taken a rod which had a length of L1, I've heated it. So the temperature started changing, it started increasing, and because it was increasing, it expanded and the length became L2. Now, I want to find out how much of length has increased. Now we know whenever you want to find out how much length has increased or how much something has increased, you take the difference. How much was it before and how much is it now? When you take the difference, you understand how much of increase has happened. So here also we are doing the same thing. We know that the rod increased and the length has become L2. So what I have done, I have taken L2 minus L1 to understand how much has it increased. So I have taken L2 minus L1. This increase is directly proportional. Now what is the meaning of directly proportional? How much the rod has increased depends upon certain factors. It depends upon what was the initial length. It depends upon L1. If the length of the rod was, if the rod was long, the length increase will also be more. If the rod is small, the length increase will also be small. So more the length of the object, more will be the increase in the expansion. So the change in the length is directly proportional to L1 and it's also proportional to delta T. That is the change in the temperature. What is the initial temperature and what is the final temperature? What is the difference between the two? More the difference, more will be the increase in the length. So here I have written L2 minus L1, that is the change in the length, is directly proportional to L1, that is the initial length, and delta T, that is the difference between the temperatures. Okay, now whenever I have such a equation, wherever I have directly proportional sign written, I want to put this into an equation form. When I say equation form, I'm going to have the sign is equal to. Whenever you want to put anything into an equation form, you need to have a constant there. That is, I've written the same thing, only change I've done is I've put an is equal to sign. And along with that, you will notice one more thing, that is this. Okay, this is what I just now told. Whenever you want to change what you have written, where you have a proportional sign into an equation, you need to have a constant, and the constant that you see here is lambda. Okay, this lambda is nothing but it's called as a coefficient of linear expansion. So how do I read this? I read it as L2 minus L1 is equal to lambda into L1 into delta T. Okay, I can also write this as L2 minus L1 is equal to lambda L1 delta T. Only thing, I have removed the multiplication sign. Even though I have removed it, it is there. Okay, so L2 minus L1 is equal to lambda L1 delta T. This is what I have got, where lambda is called as the coefficient of linear expansion. Now, here on the left hand side, I have minus L1. What do? I take it on the right hand side. So when I take it on the right hand side, I get L2 is equal to L1 plus lambda L1 delta T. Okay. Now if you see on the right hand side, we have two terms and in both of them there is L1. So what do? I take it as a common. So I have L2 is equal to L1 in bracket 1 plus lambda delta T. I have just taken the L1 outside. This equation is called as the linear expansion equation. Okay, same thing. Now if you have understood this, volumetric expansion and areal expansion will go very simple. It's going to be very easy. Same thing it is. The only thing you're doing is you're only changing the letters. So let's look at volumetric expansion. Now here I have a three-dimensional structure which has the volume of V1. I am heating it. So obviously what's going to happen is the volume is going to change because there's a temperature change and the volume becomes V2. Okay. Now I want to find out how much of volume has increased. So what do? I take the difference between the two. V2 minus V1. Okay. Now this is again directly proportional. More the volume, initial volume of the substance, more will be the volume change. More the temperature of the substance, more will be the volume change. So that's why I've written V2 minus V1 is directly proportional to V1 into delta T. Okay, now this I want to bring it into equation form. So what do? I put an is equal to sign. Along with the is equal to sign, I put a constant. So V2 minus V1 is equal to beta into V1 into delta T. Here is equal to beta. Here beta is the coefficient of volumetric expansion, or called as volumetric expansion coefficient. Okay, same thing I can write it as V2 minus V1 is equal to beta V1 delta T. I have just removed the multiplication sign. Here minus V1 is there. I'm going to put it onto the right hand side. So this will be V2 is equal to V1 plus beta V1 delta T. On the right hand side we have V1 written in two places, so we will take it as common. V2 is equal to V1 1 plus beta delta T. So this becomes my volumetric expansion equation. Okay, same thing we have done. The only thing we have changed is we have changed L with V and lambda with beta. That is the only difference we have done. Okay, going to the next one, areal expansion. Now here I've taken a sheet of solid material which has the area of A1. I'm heating it. The temperature is going to change and the sheet is going to expand to form the final area of A2. So what is the change of the area? A2 minus A1 directly proportional to A1 and delta T. The change in their area is directly proportional to how much was the initial area, that is A1, and the change in the temperature, that is delta T. I want to put it in the form of an equation, so I put an is equal to sign and a constant. A2 minus A1 is equal to sigma into A1 into delta T. Here sigma is the coefficient of areal expansion of the solid. So I can write this as A2 minus A1 is equal to sigma A1 delta T. I have minus A1 on the left hand side. I put it, or I bring it onto the right hand side. So this can be written as A2 is equal to A1 plus sigma A1 delta T. I have A1 in two places, so I will take it as common. So I have A2 is equal to A1 in bracket 1 plus sigma delta T, and this becomes my areal expansion equation. Okay, so these derivations are new to you, so it is very important that you keep practicing. First of all, read your text from page 99 to 102. Whatever you come across, every single thing, you practice writing it many a times so that you understand it properly. Derivations are very important. You should know them. And for the next class, in the next class, we will be solving numericals. So you need to learn your formulas also. Okay, I hope everything is clear. Thank you.